So our next guest hails from the beautiful Okanagan. His resume includes beat writer for the Kelowna Rockets and formerly working as a sports reporter editor for the Daily Courier in Kelowna. He is currently a WHL scout for Pro Hockey Group and runs Fishbowl Sports, a blog and podcast. Larry specializes in prospects, NHL draft content, including his annual mock drafts dating back to 2012. We are excited to welcome to the show, Larry Fisher.
Thanks for having me, Russell. Looking forward to talking lots of hockey.
Yeah. It's the season's over now, but I thought it's a good time to maybe follow up with some people who've been covering the season and get some answers to some questions that I had about the Canucks prospects and stuff like that.
For sure, yeah, they got some exciting guys coming up, and it was a really fun draft year to cover. So looking forward to catching up on a lot of different hockey topics.
Yeah, perfect. So we always start off here on Nothing is Perfect. We ask the same set of questions just to get everyone's kind of hockey fandom where their allegiances lie. So we'll start off by asking the very easy one. What is your favorite hockey team?
Yeah, so the Edmonton Oilers, I'll say. I grew up in a family of Oiler fans on the prairies, about 4 hours east Edmonton, just across the Saskatchewan border, little farm town, actually similar to where Cole Reshny's from, who was just obviously drafted in the first round to the Calgary Flames. But being in the media, I tried to be as unbiased as possible over the years. But back on the Oiler bandwagon, I'd say the past couple of years with back-to-back runs to the Stanley Cup final, hard not to get caught up in that excitement.
Yeah, it's funny. You saw a lot of Canucks content creators suddenly covering the Oilers when the Canucks didn't make the playoffs and the Oilers had their second run in a row.
Yeah, no doubt.
So growing up, did you have a favorite hockey player?
Yeah, I was a goaltender growing up. So Cujo, Curtis Joseph, he's only in Edmonton for a few years, but had some really memorable playoff series against Colorado and Dallas when Edmonton was kind of that scrappy 8 seed trying to pull off the first, second round upsets. And Cujo had some real highlights, and that was kind of right in my around my Bantam draft year, that kind of area. So when he was starring for the Oilers in the mid 90s, I had the Cujo helmet design paint job. I had the old Louisville setup with his type of pads. And so definitely I was a big Curtis Joseph guy and then followed him onward from Edmonton.
Very cool. Yeah, Cujo has one of probably the most iconic helmet designs of all time, I'd say.
Yeah, I loved it. He was a good character guy too, a fun guy on and off the ice.
Yeah, I mean, even as a Canucks fan, we still remember those battles between Dallas and Edmonton. That upset series was absolutely crazy. And I mean, even the highlight, and we always think about it, but that highlight on the empty net of Patrick Steffen missing. I know it was regular season, but I mean, I think that ended up being one of the reasons that Edmonton even made the playoffs because they got the win in that game, right?
Yeah, and I mean, as far as skaters go, Ales Hemsky I was a big fan of him, and a non-Oiler, probably my favorite skater of all time or growing up was Pavel Bure. So shout out to the Canucks. I was a big fan of the Russian Rocket as well. He was as electrifying as McDavid is now, just maybe not as consistent.
Did you have a favorite hockey moment as a fan growing up?
Well, I've been to a lot of playoff games over the years, especially in Edmonton. So I was at some of those, comeback overtime wins. I'd say that 2006 Stanley Cup run to the final. I know they lost in Game 7 to Carolina that year, and we're coming off back-to-back losses in the final to Florida. But been to a lot of playoff games in Edmonton. Took my dad to Game 6 of the 06 run. Edmonton won 4-0 in that game. But that whole playoff run was wild. I was a 21-year-old kid. I had press passes already back then. I was working for Sun Media or Canadian Press a bit, but I was also going whenever I wasn't working. I was going as a fan. So if I didn't have somebody to cover on one of the away teams or something, Lloydminster connection because I was working out of Lloyd at the time. But I had a buddy who had season tickets, and we bought a lot of playoff passes as well. And that was just that run as a whole, on and off the ice. Some of the best memories of my life, even though I was 21 back then.
Did you play hockey growing up at all?
I did. I didn't play at a real high level. A little bit of rep hockey. Played some junior B while I was going to college and after, and then some senior A as an adult. So as far as memories as a player, a lot of it's just the memories with the boys and forging those lifelong friendships. I always laugh. I did win a beer league tournament in Vegas in 2010 with a team of Kelowna guys that I played with called Sparta. Actually included former Canuck Neil Eisenhut. So that group was a lot of fun, and still get out and play beer league hockey, actually with Kevin Bieksa's brother Marty Bieksa is my captain on my beer league team here. So another tie back to the Canucks.
Yeah. So is there, as an Oilers fan, is there a member of one of your hated rivals, a player that you would like to have stolen and had as an Edmonton Oiler for their career rather than on a different team?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of them from back in the day, but I can't help but go with the recency bias here. Give you the first name that comes to mind, and that is I'd still welcome Matthew Tkachuk as an Oiler. He's one of those guys you love to have on your team, but hate to play against. He had the rivalry with Zach Cassian in the Battle of Alberta from his Calgary days, and now obviously with Florida beating Edmonton in consecutive Cup finals. Matthew Tkachuk is public enemy number one in Edmonton, but you see what he went through and what he played through this year, and obviously public enemy number one for Canada coming out of that Four Nations as well. But for him to come back, play the entire playoffs with the injuries he had, you can't deny he's a hockey player and a warrior. So I think Matthew Tkachuk is the guy I cringe when I see him, but I'd still gladly love to see him in an Oiler jersey.
You're probably happy he's not in a Flames jersey either.
Yeah, exactly. And then the blast from the past guys. I mean, obviously Ryan Kessler was a real thorn both with Vancouver and with Anaheim, and Corey Perry from his Anaheim days, right? But obviously it was cool to see the Worm become a little bit of an Oiler legend, and he'll be missed now that he signed with Los Angeles. But he for a 40-year-old guy, he had a pretty memorable playoff run. A guy that's the same age as me, so good to see the old boy still going. Him and Brad Marchand obviously having the impact he did with the Panthers this year.
We're all excited to see Corey Perry lose in the Stanley Cup Finals with the Los Angeles Kings against the Florida Panthers next year.
Well, hopefully they make it 5 in a row, 5 straight years losing to the Oilers in one of those first 2 rounds coming out of the Pacific bracket. But maybe that's what LA's thinking. We can't beat Edmonton. Maybe we need Corey Perry as the guy that can get us past Edmonton.
They haven't slayed the dragon yet, but maybe this year, but probably not. So I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about some of the Canucks prospects that have come out of the WHL. Obviously, the big one this year, I mean, a lot of Canucks fandom just shocked in general that we ended up using the 15th pick, but ended up getting, by all accounts, a really good player in Braden Coots. Can you give us a little bit of background on what Canucks fan can expect from him moving into the prospect pool?
Yeah, very exciting prospect to add to your organizational depth chart, and kind of address the need. A lot of people said if Vancouver kept the pick, they'd take a center, but you can make a case that Braden Coots was best player available at that spot as well. Obviously scouted him all year in the Western League. A few live viewings for the Pro Hockey Group, as you mentioned, under Jason Bukla. And if you were watching the draft, you saw Jason on Sportsnet and the NHL Network all weekend long, given his impressions and his take on guys like Braden Coots. But for me, with the live viewings, really impressed by his pace and his versatility. Obviously, in the WHL, he's a high-scoring player, but I think his leadership traits and those sort of character intangibles are what's really exciting for the Canucks going forward. I see him as kind of a middle six center. He can be deployed as a shutdown guy, but I do think he's got the upside still. He's got a high floor to be that third-line center, but I think he's got the upside to play in your top six and be a guy that, come playoff time and come big moments, he can be a really clutch contributor for the Canucks. So I think he's a guy that, you look into the future, he's going to be one of those guys for Vancouver that's got to shut down the Connor McDavids and the Leon Draisaitl's of the Pacific Division. But I think his competitiveness, and he's not the biggest guy, but I think kind of a smaller, faster Ryan Kessler. I see some Braden Point in him. I don't think he's the same type of player as Bo Horvat, but maybe a little bit more towards a Braden Point or a Robert Thomas. So again, I think if you're the Canucks, you're thrilled to have landed Braden Coots at 15th overall. I know I do mock drafts every year, which I really enjoy as well. Been doing those publicly, I think, since 2012 as well. And I was torn when I was putting it together, to Coots or Cole Reshny, two sort of smaller centers. Coots more of a two-way guy, Reshny, real high offensive upside. Who should I slot for Vancouver? I actually ended up putting Coots at 13th to Detroit, so he didn't make it to Vancouver in my mock draft. Obviously, Detroit took fellow WHL forward Carter Bear, and I had Reshny to Vancouver at 15th overall in my mock after Coots went to 13th to Detroit. Obviously, we know Reshny ended up going 18th to Calgary, and in my mock, I had Calgary taking Ben Kindle. Another WHL smaller forward went 11th to Pittsburgh, which seemed like a bit of a reach, but I guess I was dialed in on Detroit, Vancouver, and Calgary all taking WHL forwards, and I really do think Vancouver has to be happy getting Coots at that spot, and he'll be a big part of the organization going forward.
That's good to hear. Yeah. No, the reports are good. Now, his co-captain, who the Canucks also drafted the year before, Sawyer Minio, looks like he's going to be playing in Abbotsford next year for the Abbey Canucks as long as things go to plan. Been out of the WHL for a minute, but what can you tell us about Sawyer Minio and his time in the WHL?
Yeah, and I definitely think that contributed to the Canucks taking Braden Coots. Obviously, they were following the progress of Sawyer Minio as becoming one of the elite defenders in the WHL, so much so that he cracked Canada's World Junior
Mm-hmm.
team this year and was a ringer for the Calgary Hitmen after the trade deadline. But going back to his draft year, I was higher on Sawyer Minio than a lot of the public rankings. I mean, I'm sure if you search Twitter with Sawyer Minio and my handle, you're going to see some good reviews, some good reports during the season, during his draft year from my live viewings. So I like that pick from day one for the Canucks, and his stock has only continued to trend up. Again, being part of that World Junior experience, but just a smooth defender, almost like I call him a poor man's Devin Taves, or a rich man's Troy Stetcher, if you want to go Troy from Richmond. But sort of that not flashy guy. I don't think he's going to be a big point producer as a pro, but I think he's got second pair potential. I know Devin Taves was kind of a second pair guy until all of a sudden he landed next to Cale Makar, and now he's an all-world defenseman. But that type of player just kind of can really steady the back end, move the puck well, but be smooth without being flashy. So that's what I see in Sawyer Minio, and I definitely think he's going to factor in somewhere on that Canucks blue line in the next 2 to 3 years.
That's really good to hear. I mean, right at this point, it seems like the Canucks defensive prospects are where all the stars are and where all the depth is. So it's good to see that they've built it from the back end out. Also, kind of a logjam and goalie, bringing us to our next guy, Ty Young, who I think had a bit of a tumultuous finish to his WHL, but has played really, really well. Ended up getting called up after a couple injuries. Played for Abbey this year, and I think he ended up going 7-2 in the AHL. Played really, really well down in Kalamazoo as well. What can you tell us about Ty Young as a goaltender prospect for the Canucks?
Yeah, I think you touched on it there. Obviously, coming off an impressive season as a rookie pro, 926 save percentage in the ECHL, over 900 at 904 in the AHL. So promising numbers there, but he's a product of that Prince George goaltending factory. You look at the guys that have come through there in recent years: Taylor Gauthier, Tyler Brennan, Joshua Ravensbergen, Ty Young. He was unheralded by comparison to those guys. You look back to the Bantam draft, Gauthier, Brennan, top prospects. Ravensbergen undrafted from Bantam or at the prospects draft as it's called now. But he came in and had such a rookie year that he became arguably the top goaltending prospect for this year's draft. He ended up being the second goalie taken in the first round this year. But Ty Young trying to fit in there and find out where he fits with Gauthier and Brennan. And obviously Gauthier was moved at the deadline in his sort of last year in the WHL. But Ty Young came in pretty raw and gradually started stealing starts and sharing the crease with Tyler Brennan en route to getting drafted, and then splitting with Ravensbergen in his final season in the WHL. So I think overall, he still probably projects as a depth guy behind the likes of Artur Silovs, who's obviously coming off the AHL playoff MVP performance for the Abbotsford Canucks in their championship run, and newly drafted Alexei Medvedev, who was part of the Memorial Cup winning roster with London this year, but was the backup there behind actually a guy who came out of the WHL out of Saskatoon, cleared waivers in the Western League, and went on to have a crazy run with London in the OHL. But I'd say Silovs and Medvedev are your top goaltending prospects. But again, Ty Young has been an overachiever to this point in his career, and he's the type of guy you want to root for. But really, like you said, the organizational positional of strength right now has got to be goaltending. When you look at the Canucks being set in the presence with Thatcher Demko and Kevin Lankinen, both being extended as the NHL tandem, and then having guys like Silovs and Medvedev waiting in the wings. It's hard to see Ty Young playing NHL games for Vancouver, but if he keeps trending the way he is, he's gonna be part of the organization, and he might be pushing in a couple years.
I like to hear that. Let's talk about the most recent draft in general. Was there a team that you kind of said they absolutely went out there and killed it? They won the draft. Is there any team that stood out above the rest?
I don't like declaring winners in the immediate aftermath. I always say that, but Yeah, since you asked who won the draft, we'll give you some teams. You got to start at the top with the New York Islanders. I know they really wanted to trade back up for their Long Island local James Higgins. That was the reason they dealt Noah Dobson to Montreal for 2 first-round picks. They thought they'd package him and move up, but you look at what the Islanders did on day one of the draft. They absolutely killed it. Matthew Schaefer, obviously first overall pick, stud franchise defenseman, competes like Drew Doughty, impactful in all situations like Miro Heiskanen, or I always say maybe a better skating Alex Pietrangelo, more mobile Alex Pietrangelo. But I think getting Schaefer and Victor Eklund, who obviously I had in my top 10, they got him at 16, and Kashawn Atchison, who's just a beast of an athlete at 17, a real physical defenseman, a real throwback type guy. It'll be interesting to see how he goes as a pro. But I think the Islanders did just as good on day 2. They really impressed me. A few guys that are going to have WHL connections. Thomas Politin. He's a Czech forward who was playing in Finland for his draft year. He was actually the first overall pick in the CHL import draft for the Memorial Cup host Kelowna Rockets, who traded with Moose Jaw to get that pick. They took Thomas Politin, who was a 4th rounder for the Islanders. The Islanders also got Burke Hood, who's a Vancouver Giants goaltending prospect. I had a great live viewing. He had a shutout here in Kelowna, so doesn't get any better than that for a live viewing of Burke Hood, but he played really good that night, and I think he's got some upside for the Islanders. And another guy who will be in the new BC division, this year in the WHL is Jake Kvashnika. And he was a 7th round pick, but out of the U.S. national team development program. But he's coming to the WHL with the expansion Penticton Vs. So if you want to follow some of the Islanders picks, Politin, Hood, and Kvashnika will all be in the BC division this year. But the Islanders won the draft lottery to move all the way up. A big win. I think they jumped 10 spots to select Schaefer first overall. And for me, they wound up as the big winners from this year's draft. I really liked what Nashville, Calgary, Carolina, and Los Angeles did as far as rounding out my top 5. I can't deny the Flames were my top Canadian team. No Oilers bias there, but maybe a little hometown bias. Like I said, Cole Reshny's from just down the road where I actually played in my Bantam draft year for his hometown, Macklin. So I had to cheer for the hometown boy, and it'll be hard seeing him on the other side of the Battle of Alberta, but I really like what Calgary did throughout their draft, and a lot of ties back to Kelowna there as well, obviously, with Mikael Backlund being the captain of the Flames. He was here my first year in Kelowna, and Ryan Huska was the head coach that year here in Kelowna, and he's the coach of the Flames. So a bit of a soft spot for the Flames, as long as they're not challenging the Oilers too much as far as a Battle of Alberta in the playoffs goes.
Yeah, it's easier to cheer for a team when they're not playing against your team, I guess.
Absolutely.
Was there any team that kind of just left you shaking your head, wondering what the heck they were up to?
Again, if I'm not declaring winners, I really don't like declaring losers. I'd rather declare winners than losers in the present. So a lot of it is time will tell. I think Chicago and Buffalo were the 2 teams when I look at their overall results left a lot to be desired for me. I think Chicago is one that will be really debatable. I felt there were better options available from the first round on, but their prospects could certainly prove me wrong, especially guys like Vaclav Nestrasil and Mason West, in particular, the big 6'6" Minnesota high schooler who's going to go back and play high school football as a quarterback. He's a real intriguing prospect, but again, he's a bit of a project as well. And Buffalo, I wasn't a fan of their picks as a whole. They did take a big check forward, Matus Kusharsik, who I think is coming over to play in the CHL as an import draft guy in the 4th round. But I feel like Buffalo passed over a ton of talent throughout, which normally I kind of like the Sabres drafting strategy, but they went a little different this year. They took maybe the next Tyler Myers with their first pick at 9th overall, and Radim Murtka out of Seattle as well, another guy that was teammate with Braden Coots. I'm not as high on him as some people, but I definitely think he's got a similar skill set to Tyler Myers.
Yeah, they don't make them like that very often. So big voice.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to go through the draft, was there a pick that you really thought, man, that's a steal, that they got a really good person there, because I didn't expect that player to go there?
Yeah, I had a lot of fallers based on my rankings and my mock draft. If we're starting at the top, I think James Higgins at 7th overall to the Boston Bruins. He was projected the first overall pick to start this draft year. This was every year there's kind of that one face going into the draft year. This was the James Higgins draft year. For him to go all the way from 1st to 7th, And the fact he's already at Boston College, he's in Boston, I think. And you look at the Bruins depth chart, Elias Lindholm, who obviously the Canucks are very familiar with, but you got
Mhm.
Elias Lindholm and Casey Middlestad and Pavel Zacha. I mean, those guys aren't really first line centers. So I think
Mm.
that franchise is set up for James Higgins to come in and be one of the real faces of the Boston Bruins going forward, as the center to David Pasternak. So I think Higgins at 7 is going to look like a steal just based on the fit he has. I think Roger McQueen, if he hits his
Mhm.
potential at 10th to Anaheim, obviously a guy who battled injuries throughout his draft year, didn't play a whole lot. Victor Eklund, we already mentioned, at 16th to the Islanders, and I really think Cole Resheny was a top 10 talent for this draft class. Again, maybe a little bit of a homer or hometown bias there, but I think if those three reach their potential, they could be steals. And then beyond that, I got to give a shout out to the small boys. I always like the small skilled forwards, and a half dozen of them fell quite a ways, including Cameron Schmidt, high scoring guy out of the Vancouver Giants. Dallas took him with their first pick of the draft, but it was 93rd overall, right at the end of the third round. So for Cameron Schmidt to fall that far when a lot of people had him as a first or second rounder. Another guy, L.J. Mooney. I think he's one of the most exciting
Mm.
prospects in hockey. He was great at the U18s for Team USA, and the Montreal Canadiens have been drafting so well lately. They're not scared of the little guys. Obviously, Cole Caulfield, Lane Hudson. I think L.J. Mooney's the next one in the line there of little Montreal Canadiens to make a big impact. Guys like Adam Banak went in the hundreds to Minnesota, and Philip Ekberg was one of the last picks of the draft. Carolina took a chance on him, but he actually led the U18s in scoring this spring, the U18 Worlds for Sweden. So didn't have a great draft year in the OHL as an import, but really tore it up at the U18s. I was shocked to see him in the seventh round, and then Michael Sverchek and Owen Griffin being two more names I'd throw out there that are 5'10" or below, but have big potential as far as offense goes. And the goaltender, Jack Ivankovic, he was my top goaltender for this year's draft. I had him as a first round talent. He was the fifth goalie selected behind Alexei Medvedev. Nashville took Jack Ivankovic at 58th
Mm.
overall. Another undersized guy, whether he's listed at 5'11" or 6 foot, kind of that Dustin Wolf type guy. But he's got
Mm.
another under 6 foot mentor now in UC Saros in Nashville. So I really like Jack Ivankovic as another guy that could, just the way he's been so clutch for Canada on the international stage. I see him as a guy going to Michigan. I think he could be a guy that's a potential steal as well in a few years if he's the successor to Saros in Nashville.
Oh. I wanted to pick your brain about Mr. Gavin McKenna. Smooth on the ice. He was very smooth in his interview yesterday as he slipped his Penn State hat on mid-interview, which I really liked. Obviously, the rule changes to NCAA now allows these junior guys to go down and play college earlier, I believe is how it works. What does that mean now that Gavin McKenna is going to be going in Penn State? What does that mean for prospects in general? And then what does that kind of mean for the CHL, as it might mean some of these 18 players or 18-year-old players are going to go play in the States rather than in the WHL?
Yeah, it's Gavin McKenna is a huge loss for the CHL, no two ways about it, and a huge win for the NCAA. As far as that development debate goes, now all eyes are going to be on Landon DuPont for next year and Maddox Schultz for the year after that. Fellow prospects that are from the WHL that can make the jump to the NCAA for their NHL draft years, following Gavin McKenna and Keaton Verhoff, who left Victoria. And for me, I was more surprised by Verhoff, and we keep talking about Cole Resheny, but Verhoff and Cole Resheny leaving Victoria for the University of North Dakota. More surprising than McKenna leaving Medicine Hat, just because I felt McKenna didn't have anything left to prove in the WHL. I mean, we talk about his point streak of 50 some games and over 2 points per game. I mean, what's he really going to do another year in the WHL? Led the Tigers to a championship this year, did lose in the Memorial Cup final to London, but maybe if Medicine Hat was the Memorial Cup host next year in 2026, they were one of the finalists along with Kelowna to host. Maybe then he stays. But for me, I just think you look at $700,000 US, over $1 million Canadian as far as the nil package that Gavin McKenna is going to get. That's going to be his earnings off the ice as a sort of an ambassador for Penn State. And you look at the video making the rounds today, showing off Penn State's facilities. You can't blame Gavin McKenna and other CHL stars for choosing this NCAA path, but you're right. It's going to have a ripple effect on the Western Hockey League and the CHL in general, as far as revenue generating and marketing. The mass exodus is a bit concerning because I think the CHL did expect to lose the 19-year-olds, the guys that were drafted, came back, played 1 year in the CHL, tore it up, had 100 points, 50 goals, whatever. Those guys, okay, they're going to go to college for 1 year and then turn pro. Based on that AHL rule that it's either AHL or back to the dub, and a lot of guys, and actually that rule, speaking of which, we're still waiting on the full package of rule changes for the new CBA that the NHL, NHLPA just signed off on. That could include select 19-year-olds being allowed to play in the AHL, whether it's first round picks or exceptional status prospects like Michael Misa out of Saginaw, who is still debating what to do with the San Jose Sharks or potentially college. Again, no point going back to the OHL for him. So in general, I think the CHL is getting younger. I think we're seeing more Americans coming up, the 15, 16-year-old Americans. But you are losing stars to the NCAA, and you're losing them as young as 17. Gavin McKenna, Keaton Verhoff are 17 years old, graduated early in Verhoff's case, and they're off to NCAA. So again, I think expected to lose 19-year-olds, didn't expect to lose 17-year-olds. You're drafting them at 15. You're only getting 1 or 2 years out of these kids in the Western League, and they're going heading to NCAA schools. So obviously that's a concern, and like I said, especially from a marketing and revenue generating standpoint, I think the CHL's got a lot of discussions to have behind the scenes to try and make sure they find a way to retain these kids at least for their NHL draft year.
It should be interesting to see how that goes over the next couple of years.
Yeah, especially with DuPont and Maddox Schultz being again, we've had quite a run. I know Celebrini didn't play in the Western League. He went straight to college, but he would have been a Western Canadian kid from Vancouver. But to have Bedard, Celebrini, McKenna, and then now you got DuPont and Schultz coming up that are potential first overall picks in their draft year. Again, you want to keep DuPont and Schultz in the Western League if possible, but how do you compete with the Penn States and the Michigan States and all these big football schools that can throw now 6 figures, maybe 7 figures at some of these top prospects to recruit them, and the facilities they have to offer, the lifestyle, the experience of being a big man on campus at 17, 18 years old. It's very enticing. So how do the Western League keep these guys at home? It's going to be a challenge, like you said, over the next few years.
So you have been covering the Kelowna Rockets for many years now, and when I initially reached out to you, I asked if maybe you could come up with a good story about Tyler Myers, and I forgot that Tyler Myers is 1,000 years old now, and that was a very long time ago. But I think you were saying it was your first year covering Kelowna when Tyler Myers was playing there?
I was gonna say, yeah, we're really going down trip down memory lane as far as specific, game highlights or experiences that way with Tyler. Definitely hard to remember, but being a 23-year-old kid getting to Kelowna in 2008, and I think I got here a few weeks before Rockets training camp. It was the year that Luke Shen made the Leafs as an 18-year-old. Tyler Myers was coming back as a 11th overall pick in that same draft from Buffalo, so he was sort of the prized prospect that year, and just going to training camp and looking way up. I'm only about 5'9", so you can imagine with Tyler on skates, looking up at him, interviewing him for the first time and many times throughout that year. But he towered over everyone in Kelowna and in the WHL, en route to winning a championship before losing to Taylor Hall's Windsor Spitfires in the Memorial Cup final. But that was a fun season to cover. Like I said, going back to 08-09, Jamie Benn, Tyson Barrie, and Mikhail Backlund were among the other NHLers on that roster. But for me, it was one and done for Tyler Myers here because he went on to win the Calder Trophy as the NHL's Rookie of the Year the following season with the Buffalo Sabres. So not a ton of memories of Tyler Myers, but I definitely know his father-in-law. He met his wife, Michaela here, the daughter of then Rockets skill coach Kim Gellert. But Kim's a beauty, and I do see Kim around the golf course still in the summer here. So yeah, great. Tyler's a great guy and married into a great family as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's developed a kind of I would say almost a cult following in Vancouver. Is just like as one of the guys that everyone just loves to see succeed. So good to hear that he's a nice guy and surrounds himself with some good people too.
And good to see that he's having the success he has in Vancouver because, there was a time there in Vancouver where he came there and it was close to Kelowna, close to, the in-laws, everything else. The wife's close to home again. They're raising their family back in British Columbia. Exciting for that. But on the ice, there were some ups and downs, some highs and lows. And to see him kind of overcome that and play his way back into being a key member of that Vancouver Canucks defense is great to see for Tyler and for their family, because
Yeah.
it is hard to play in the bubble in Canada if people think you have a big contract and you're not bringing what they thought you were going to bring. It's the pressure, and even for your family, it's a hard place to be. But now, like you said, I think he's managed to overcome that and really settle into Vancouver and become a big part of the Canucks. So hopefully that continues going forward under another Kelowna connection, and obviously Adam Foote as the newest head coach of the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, should be interesting to see. Awesome, Larry. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to join us here on Nothing is Perfect. We'll hopefully talk again sometime in the season and bring you on to chat about everything going on in your world.
Absolutely. No, thanks for having me, Russell, and enjoy the off season.
Nothing is perfect.